Hey guys, musicians around the world. So I have published 2 books this year. I'm so thrilled actually to have got into a kind of groove with Continuum. So just in case you don't know, Continuum is my new music method, and it's far too long to explain here. But I've done some other, I've read some essays about it. So that's, if you want to find out about it, you can access those on the archive of this podcast. It takes it's quite interesting how one needs to sort of flip the communication in a book compared to doing an online class, which I'm really used to doing that. And I'm used to having a student and having a more sort of performative instruction-based class, even if it's distance learning. I'll hold the instrument and I'll play it and I'll say, this is what you do and this is how you do that. And then I'll watch them and we'll alter any behaviour that isn't working and reinforce any that is. And that's the kind of process. When you teach music through text, lots of different things arise. And I think things do work. I think lots of things do work in text. They're never quite as easy to decipher, I suppose. And you do need, I guess, a good language ability. If you're listening to somebody talking and they're saying, for example, the difference between right and left, anyone who's listening from whichever country needs to understand what you're saying, the left and the right. And they need to understand, your accent. They need to understand the transcript, and sometimes transcripts are incorrect. So you have to really think about all these things, and that's why I always try to pronounce my T's when I'm talking in a podcast, so people can, appreciate and understand the full word. Because if you start skipping on whole letters, or you start using slang or generic terms, it can't always be helped, but, I am British, so there are going to be British idiosyncrasies to how I speak and how I instruct and what I say. And that's really I think it's quite curious how I've had to, transfer the ability to learn from me into text that's available to as many people as possible, because that's what you want from teaching. So I found it a really interesting experience, really nice experience. So the first book was just the foundations. But the second book, which, I got actually very stressed doing it, because as soon as you start mixing images, really HD, high definition, high res images into a book, and you're working with blocks of texts and then images that are really heavy in terms of, contrast, definition, line definition, etc. You've got to think about all that. And it's not easy. It's not easy. It took a day and a half, I think, and there are only 6 scores. Some of them are separated, so there was actually about more like 10. But when I say separated, I mean the different instruments were separated. So there were only these 10 pictures, these 10 images, these 10 image scores that I needed to get in between the instructions of how to use them. But the action of editing them was really difficult, really complex, and very, somebody's making a lot of noise out there. It's my gardener. Can't be helped. It's really annoying, isn't it? I won't talk for too long then. So, yes, you can buy the book now, and I would recommend, it's a bit more expensive, but I would recommend, a lot more expensive actually, because it's an A4 sized book and it's got, these very, I would say, important images to follow. So instead of following a music score, you actually follow an image, and a couple of them go from left to right, a couple of the others are spiraled, but you don't have to go left to right, you could go right to left. That's the beauty of them. And you look at things like density or extremes or contrasts or numbers, things like that. And the tutor or the conductor actually has masses and masses of discretion. Or if you're self-taught, you have masses of discretion as well. So you can start, if you want to start in the middle, you can. That's the beauty of the image score, is that it lacks prescription, and that's. A lot of musicians would sit down and look at that and think, "Oh my goodness, no! Just give me notes. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing here." But the whole concept of the book is to be more creative about what you do. So, really took longer than I thought to do, but they're quite beautiful. I've put some of them on T-shirts because they look so beautiful. I had to be careful that I didn't think about being beautiful before I was thinking about being musically intriguing, So some of them aesthetically, I thought, I'm not sure if I like that bit, but it's not about liking it. It's about what you're trying to instill in the person that's looking and engaging. So that is now up on my Amazon. If you just look up Continuum Music Framework, you'll be able to access those. And if you go to any of my websites, I'm going to be doing a lot of plugging in the coming days. But I'm already working on book 3, and book 3 is a single piece of music, especially for brand new string players. And I'm not going to tell you too much more because I'm sort of excited about it. I want to get it published before. I'm a bit secretive and a bit possessive about it. But this is something that you can do on the very, almost immediately when you sit down. And if you learn via the Continuum Approach, that is, you can probably do this in the first week, I would say. And it's an orchestral piece, an ensemble piece, perhaps I should say, for strings. And I will be doing a backing track as well, quite a contemporary backing track, which I'm really excited to do. So I'm going to release a piece of music this week, and I'm going to publish the composition online and all over the internet, and you'll be able to follow that on YouTube, play-alongs and what have you. So really throwing myself in to Continuum big time. Anyway, I use an AI assistant, not to write music, he's not very good at that, but for a lot of collating and writing descriptions of my work, just making sure I'm not making spelling mistakes. If I don't use him, I make tons of spelling mistakes. Shocking. Really, really bad. So unfortunately, I don't have the facility where I can say to my AI, can you write me a piece of music? Now, you can, of course, go to the internet and do that, and they will produce rubbish. And I've written about this quite a lot, actually, in the first book. You just don't go there. If you're looking for descriptions and organisational skills, which I'm really bad at, then AI is really good at that. But always remember, if you're using AI for anything, to correct, reread, double correct, triple correct, because it repeats itself constantly, and it just has the same ideas, which it sort of goes over and over again. So you're not as an artist or a musician, you're not coming up with anything new and exciting. And if you give it something new and exciting, it's quite good at describing it because it's never seen it before. So AI, I do think, becomes, it feels like it's slightly enthralled. Of course, it doesn't have feelings, but it does feel like it's a little bit enthralled by something novel that it comes across. And in that way, it's, like a child would be when you take it to Disney. And I think that's really quite interesting as well. But Continuum doesn't really believe that AI can offer creative musicians very much at all. I'm not anti using it, and I do realise the other thing about Continuum is that I'm big on disabilities, and a lot of the images that I've just done, a good portion of them are really suitable for autistic people and neurodiverse people, even dyslexic people who see screens differently, who can, people who can find, be overstimulated by these white sheets. So they were all on black backgrounds. So I'm positively engaging Continuum with disabilities. And I do realise that using AI can be very helpful to people who have disabilities. So, any sort of disability that AI can help you with is really important. And people who can't play instruments, for example, because of disability, AI is, can definitely help there. I think the problem comes when there is no human input. A disabled person can actively input a great deal into AI systems for music creativity. So it just depends, I think, what level of input you're going to have at the end of the day. And this is the crux. AI works best when it helps a human, not the other way around. See what I mean? So yeah, that I hope that all the work that I do from now on is clearly human made, and everybody can see that. It's glaringly obvious when you look at these things. But of course, if I'd said to my AI, create an image score for me, it probably could have done something vaguely interesting, but I would have still not been happy with it because there would have been so many errors that I may as well have done it myself at the very beginning. And this is, I think, something else you've got to be really careful of, actually. Mending bad work is always going to take longer than just doing good work. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, anyway, the 2 books are out. The paperback, I think the first book you can just get on Kindle. You don't need the paperback. Second book, you do need the paperback, really, because then you can put it in front of you on the piano. And it's, you can flick pages and you can annotate it. And I think any musician you speak to prefers to have the book in front of them. We work very well with books. Besides, you don't need to be charged. The book doesn't need charging. And when you're using like your tablet or something, unless you've got it permanently on charge, it's very battery hungry. So that's the other point. Anyway, my garden's going ballistic now, so I'm going to say farewell, and I'll be back soon with lots of updates and lots of music lessons.